Right. Welcome everyone to another episode of goLive, where we actually have conversations with our customers who are building something meaningful on GenAI and not just probably leveraging this technology for building pilots and POCs. This is your host, Rishabh, founder and CEO of GoML, where we're solving some real world challenges, specifically in the health tech and the fintech space for our customers, helping building them some challenging use cases leveraging GenAI. Today, I'm very excited for this conversation because we have someone very special with us as a guest. He's a customer and a partner with us. He's trusted us with something which is very, very, important for overall, existence of humankind. Well, we'll speak about the use case during the conversation today, but I just wanted to quickly introduce Bob. Thank you so much for joining in, right? And Bob is the CTO and co-founder for ConnectCareHero, right? And where they're solving something, as I mentioned, very interesting in the senior living and the senior health space, right? But Bob has started as probably as a software engineer in the nuclear energy sector. And then obviously he's tried his hand as DevOps before he started this company in 2020. But the most interesting fact about Bob, or two interesting facts about Bob, is one, he likes to refer himself as the chief nerd in the organization, which is the most opted for role right now in the organization. And he has twin daughters, right? Because I have twins myself, so that's quite appealing for me as well. Right? But Bob, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't we get started with a quick introduction from your side for listeners today?
That sounds great, Rishabh. So yeah, first of all, thank you for having me. I love sharing our story and just what we're building here at ConnectCareHero. It was just an incredible partnership that we had with GoML. So just being able to speak today, I'm super excited about this, and thank you for giving me the opportunity in order to share. So you hit a lot of good talking points there on myself. Again, I'm the co-founder and CTO of ConnectCareHero. Again, I wear that badge proudly of Chief Nerd Officer. I've all things tech related, or like what I like to call nerd related, come my way through the company. We started the company full time in Chicago here in 2020. So it was me and two of my co-founders, and so we got into a TechStars program back in 2020. That's what kind of like made us take the leap from the business world into the startup world, and we have been building out ConnectCareHero ever since. So ConnectCareHero is in the eldertech space, and we have a suite of solutions that are specifically for senior care communities, home care organizations, and very similar. But we're really focusing on the older adult community and providing solutions to them and their families and loved ones.
Well, thanks, Bob, for that introduction. And again, as I mentioned, probably very interesting problem statement that you're trying to solve, right? But within specifically the healthcare space and the health tech space, right? Senior care living and senior care overall as an industry probably hasn't really kicked off that much or that well today, because it's not. The reason obviously is because it's not found very glamorous from the problem statement solution perspective, right? So first of all, would love to understand what was the vision when you guys were trying to probably when you were building this, or when you started building this in 2020. Number one,
Yeah.
and number two, obviously, you're building or you're leveraging a platform today to probably solve this problem. So if you can probably speak about Tele platform as well that you're trying to build a bit for our listeners today.
Sure. So great question, Rishabh. So the whole idea and like how we got into elder tech was actually a very personal experience that our CEO Osvaldo had. So his father actually had him later in life when he was 57 years old, and then Osvaldo became the primary caregiver for his father. Living here in Chicago, and he had to put his dad when his dad was later on in life into an elder care facility here in Chicago. His dad was Spanish speaking only. And the location that he was actually put into here in Chicago, it really didn't have staff in order to help, like even be able to converse with him, with speaking a different language, or they really didn't know a lot about his background. He was a farmer from Mexico. He loved mariachi music. He had a very different background and a very different cultural background than a lot here in Chicago had. So there was a gap with trying to connect with the staff at a location and with Osvaldo's father. So that was kind of the main piece that really like pushed us in order to see like, hey, there is a problem here. there's a lot of solutions that we can bring in order to connect staff with the residents or with the loved ones. And that was kind of like the initial driver for why we started the company. And so that was in, when we started in 2020, it's been 6 years. So, we've gone through a pandemic in order, like where we were trying to, connect loved ones with their elders, within senior care facilities. And then we've really built out our suite in order to bring in new technologies and actually offer that to these locations. So it's been pretty cool in order to kind of see like the wave of technological advancements and seeing like how we can actually bring that into elder care and elder tech. It's been a pretty fun ride, and I could dig into any one of those components if you want me though too, Rishabh. But I'm super passionate about that piece of it, so I tend to want to talk a lot more about it. But I'll take a breath here though, and if there's any piece of that you want me to dig into, I'd be happy to.
No, absolutely. And I can probably just see in your voice, right, when you're obviously talking about this use case, how passionate you are. And we've probably built, I think in the last 3 years, we've probably worked with 200 different use cases or solved 200 plus different use cases, right? But I think one thing as a pattern that I've seen probably across, especially probably, with startup founders like yourself that we work with, I think a lot of these use cases see the light of the day and keeping the passion aside, right? Because every founder, I assume being a founder myself, is passionate, right? But keeping the passion aside, when you've identified a very, very specific problem that you've either gone through or you've experienced or you've seen, right? You're trying to solve that very, very specific problem, right? And you always have this guidance for a lot of these, startup founders, even probably in the mid-market space, when we start identifying use cases. A North Star primarily is that you need to first identify the problem. So stop putting technology in front of the problem or solution in front of the problem. That's what a lot of people start try to do. But I can definitely see that over here that you guys identified the right problem or even a problem for that matter before you start looking into the tech aspect of it. Right?
Yeah.
But so one thing that definitely would be very interesting to understand, right, Bob, over here is that as a CTO, obviously you would have gone or you would have understood different types of technology. And I was reading through some of your profiles. You've probably worked in the days of COBOL as well, right? And you were actually instructing machines to do something.
Yep.
Now the new language obviously is English, right? As we all obviously say, right? To probably let these machines know what they want to do. First of all, would love to understand why you thought something like and you started in 2020, right? Obviously technology has matured across, but why you thought probably something like GenAI today would solve a problem which is like very, very unsolved today or uncatered to in the market, number one. Number two, how do you see this whole, specifically from the tele platform or even the whole AI capabilities that you're building? How do you see this emerging, specifically in the senior care living space?
Sure. Yeah. Great question, Rishabh. And so, I mean, like what we've actually found, in the years of working on the company is that in the senior care space, technology always seems to kind of lag a little bit behind just kind of the norm, I guess I would say. It as you had said, it isn't like the most glamorous sector in order to really focus, in order to focus on. But what we found is really interesting in order to see that when certain technologies start to get when an individual can actually start to grasp a certain technology, then that starts to pull the technology into work with them. And that's, like when they really want to see those technologies like start to be available at work. One big example, and it's kind of a wild one in order to even talk about it now, is even video chat. And like people interacting like this in a digital way, or like with digital calls. When we were building during the pandemic, that was a big thing where prior to that, video calls were nice, but when you physically weren't able to go see people, then you started to hear more organizations that really wanted to use video calling in order to be able to connect with loved ones. So our tele platform, we were actually able to build in a video conferencing solution where we were able to pair third-party vendors with older adults in senior care communities and actually have culturally relevant experiences that way. So we kind of saw like that shift early on, like because of the pandemic. Fast forward to today, obviously the latest hotness and what everybody is talking about is AI everything, right? And I feel like when that wave first started, you didn't really see it a lot in elder care. It was there and it was kind of talked about, but it was, people didn't really want to take the time in order to like investigate it. It was a hard problem to solve. How to how to bring those tools in was difficult. But with some of the tools, like Claude and ChatGPT and like all these different AI agents that we as people are using on a daily basis now, like the employees at some of these senior care facilities are saying, hey, if I can use that at home in order to do X, Y, and Z, why can't I use this technology at work? And because it was so tangible for them, and then the questions started coming up like, okay, can we start using this technology at work, which is in elder care? Luckily for us, we were already working on that because that's where our passion lies, right? Is being able to bring new technology in. But that's been kind of like that's been the new wave that we've started to see is it kind of starts with like societal changes a little bit, and then that pulls into the professional side, and we've definitely seen that. But now again with like when it comes to AI, we have certain like lightweight solutions that we were using AI in components of our suite. But what has really been beautiful to see is the partnership with GoML, because we were able to use generative AI in order to build a solution that honestly our small startup team would not have been able to do without that partnership. We always had the idea of being able to cognitively stimulate or talk to and converse with the older adults and the older residents using generative AI, but we didn't have the experience on our team in order to do things like animations or meaning like Blender animations with skeletons. So think like Pixar type of animations. We didn't have that. With the partnership with GoML, we were able to build that. And at the end of the product, myself, and the whole team like kind of sat back and were like, we would not have been able to do this without that partnership. And it's just really cool in order to look back and just reflect on like that whole transition. So it's pretty exciting.
No, brilliant, Bob. And obviously, I think what you mentioned probably about the whole use case evolution, right? Especially across technology. And the whole narrative, probably what impressed me about this narrative is that you were focused on the problem. The only probably thing that changed is you evolved with the technology. You never changed the outcomes or the problem statement that you were trying to
Yep.
solve, right? And more often than not, what we see probably with a lot of these startups happening, that they probably with technology, the strategy changes, the outcomes change, and the use cases change. So don't let the tech drive that outcome. Like you own the outcome, and mostly probably the tech helps you get there faster as it matures, right?
Absolutely.
But speaking at the specific use case that we're trying to solve, like where probably you've partnered with GoML, right? Specifically, you're trying to solve two different problems, right? And that's not only limited to senior care living, right? But that's a problem statement across the health tech space,
Sure.
right? Which is one, the data is so fragmented, right, across these different set of systems. And it's not only fragmented, it's disjoint, right? One is you have disparate data source, but it's so disjoint, right? And I myself, I'm pretty sure you would have faced the same thing. The moment my doctor changes, I have to now repeat the whole history, right? Right, with the doctor. I mean, that's such a painful exercise to go through, right? And
Yes.
now more often than not, they ask us to go through the whole process of testing. And so one is the data fragmentation. And number two is the patient retention piece, right? Across the networks, how do you retain some of these patients, especially in the industry that you are, which is senior care living, right? So do you want to probably dive a little deeper in terms of how did you identify that problem and how you're trying to solve that with this partnership?
Yeah, that is a fascinating challenge too, Rishabh. And even the personal experience that you shared there with, if you change a primary care doctor, right? I mean, you have to go back and explain in detail, what type of medications that you are on, background as to the why. That you are right that like the data is just so fragmented, it's very difficult. But isn't it beautiful to think, though, that there are certain solutions that are coming out now with the new technology that we have that I think are going to start to bring all those fragments together, right? And like for example, like with our use case, and I can share the I can share a really quick slide here in a little bit as to like what we built, but like being able to use a tool like like a digital avatar that you're able to converse with, right? You're able to now use technology in order to pull things out, right? Like a meaning like sentiment analysis out of a voice, right? You're able to track, like if a quiz show is happening, how many answers are correct, or like what is the what are the percentages correct, or after somebody is using like after somebody engages multiple times, do you start to see a uptick or do you start to see a downtick? And then that starts to tell a story, right? And all you're doing really, in order to start grabbing that data, you're just going about your day to day and interacting with something that exists, right? And then we can use technology in order to bring all those fragments together. So instead of like having to go to a doctor and tell that previous story again, you would actually have background information on like the person that is interacting with this digital with this digital layer, and then you're able to track it, have analytics on it, and then build just so many different things on top of it. And this, when I was referring to like interacting, here's just a really quick view as to like what we were able to build with GoML. And it's really an AI powered host that provides a quiz show type solution for the older adults. And we will eventually be able to bring in like background information. Who is the end user? Like using Osvaldo's dad as an example, he was a farmer in Mexico. So, ask questions about farming in Mexico is going to be a step. And like, how powerful is that? How cognitively stimulating is that? And, for an older adult, how comforting is that in order to be able to, talk to an avatar or like an autonomous agent that knows a little bit about you. So it's like, to me, it gives me goosebumps, and I can't really show it on screen here, but like the hairs are standing on my arm, like just talking about, like the possibilities of it. Because I mean, just you're right though, Rishabh, like with like the fragmentation of data. And I just think like this wave of AI is going to be able to help in so many ways with some of those issues. And even in a even in a situation like elder care that isn't very glamorous, we're going to be able to start to see some of this stuff, and we're currently building this stuff that is really going to be changing the world and making lives better for people.
There were so many things probably that you highlighted, Bob, but one thing that's going to stay back with me probably not only during this session, but probably for a long time, as you mentioned, that the data, the beauty about probably this phase of tech that's actually coming in, that data is always existing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're interacting with something that was always there, right? But you're probably leveraging this technology to interact in the right way. That probably makes it much more consumable. That's definitely going to probably stay back with me, and at least probably with our
Yeah.
listeners as well, right? And you've touched based a bit on this during your conversation as well, like Bob. And this is something I really respect startup founders with. Like, we are the experts in our field, first of all. Like, so no one can do better when it comes to senior living. But I definitely need someone like GoML who brings in the right tech expertise, right? How do we implement it? Leveraging tech focus, right? Not on the business side, because that's the expertise that you bring in. But how was it partnering with GoML and the whole AWS ecosystem during this engagement?
I cannot say more positive, Rishabh. So first of all, I mean, the way that we were brought together was actually through a startup program. So I was able to work with our AWS account representative, which AWS has an absolutely wonderful representative team, even for a small startup team. I remember when I was actually making the shift, going from corporate America into startup land. I always questioned, like, what would that relationship look like for a company that doesn't have a $5 million AWS bill? Like, oh, they're not going to care for us, they're not going to listen to us. That's what I always assumed. It has been 100% the opposite. AWS has full teams and dedicated resources in order to help out startups, like us, and really hear what problems we're trying to solve, and then pair us with other companies that are able to assist. And in this case, I could actually remember reaching out to our account representative, and I said, "Hey, we have this idea. What would you recommend?" And they had said, like, "Oh, there's this AWS startup program, that is partnered with GoML. Why don't you start working on, like a project plan? Start putting together an idea as to what that is. It will be submitted, pitched, and then we'll see where it goes." And I am very proud to say, from being on this call, that it was accepted, and that we were able to work with GoML through that. So the first part of that question is with AWS and that relationship. Couldn't speak more about, can't say more positive about it. Truly incredible. And I mean, like, that was kind of like the starting of this relationship. And then GoML, I have, so as you had mentioned, Rishabh, like early on in this call, when I was working within Fortune 100, when I was working, with, in corporate America, I had dealt with, like a lot of consulting firms, a lot of contracting firms, development firms. So I thought I had an idea as to, like, what that agreement would look like, or like what that development would look like. And that was a little bit of the mentality that I went into, like when we started this partnership with GoML. And I will say that, like, out of my, how many years I have been a professional in IT or in tech for 17 years now, I have actually never had a relationship like this that really felt like the consulting firm, the GoML team was part of our team. And not only were they building, not only were they building what we had asked, but were providing additional thoughts and like helping us design it and help, like make the product as good as what it could be. And that was truly incredible. It's very easy in order to take, and I use easy lightly, but it's very simple in order to take a project plan and just build what's in the project plan. It's not easy in order to look at that project plan and say, "Hey, I don't think that you thought about X, Y, and Z, or have you thought about A, B, and C?" And that's what I felt that we had with GoML. And like the constant touch bases. We had two standing meetings a week that we would meet with the team. And then we had them within our Slack environment as well. So there was constant communication when the developers would have questions, when the project managers would have questions. They were getting asked and they were getting answered very, very quickly. We as, like the, as like the company, we were benefiting because things were going so quickly. And I just also have to say the expertise on the team was incredible. What we built with this, with this project, I am proud to say, does not exist in the eldertech space right now. And, prior to going into this agreement, we did not have the expertise on the team in order to do components of it, like the digital animations and, all of that. And I mean, GoML was able to source the right people, the right experts. And then at the end of the day, like I said, when we look at the solution, we can't help but smile with how cool it is and how many additional ideas that we're starting to have with, like, this thing can just go crazy. And all of, like, those thoughts and that excitement is all thanks to that partnership with GoML. So I know it probably sounds like I was paid to say this. I was not. I promise I was not. I just can't speak to, again, just how wonderful of a project that it was, and just how great everybody was. It really felt like it was a family, and that GoML was part of the ConnectCareHero team. And that feeling is just an incredible one.
No, first of all, let this be on record. We did not pay Bob to say this.
Exactly.
But thank you so much, Bob, for that feedback, first of all. And I'll probably react to it in two ways, right? One is AWS. And I've been working with AWS for almost close to 15 years now. And there's a reason why, as an organization, we've stuck with AWS because AWS, for them, obviously, they heavily love working with startups because they themselves operate as startups, but probably they believe in a lot of ideas, right? So that's one of the reasons why we've also trusted AWS.
Yep.
And number two, I think from the GoML perspective, because we do work with startups like yourselves, right? Even probably younger startups like yourself than yourself, right? But one thing or the culture that we've tried to embed into this organization is that consider us as an extension of your organization. Like
Yes.
we are here to make your success. We're just not here to probably deliver and then move out, right? So that's kind of the culture, and I'm really happy that probably that's paying out, or probably that's something our customers are probably relating to as well. Right? So thanks for that feedback, Bob.
Yeah.
Uh, Before we call it a session, right? You built a successful organization, right? And a lot of startup founders obviously do that. But I think what you've also done is you've successfully probably identified the right tech aspects in terms of how do you now solve that last mile delivery of this problem statement or the use case that you're thinking of to your target audience, right? Which
Yes.
obviously is very tough in your case or the area that you're actually working in, right? A lot of founders still struggle to marry the two together, right? Which they've identified the right use case, they're trying to solve it, but the last mile piece that the technology solves, like how do you probably cater this to your customers, right? They're still struggling to do that. And so, any 2 cents that you'd have for these founders who are still struggling to identify that, Bob?
Yeah. Again, great question, Rishabh. And this one, I actually will say that I have had to learn, or I guess like at ConnectCareHero, we've really had to learn this as a company. And I know it probably sounds cliche, but you need to start. And I will say that barrier honestly is like it's kind of hard and it's kind of daunting, especially when you're talking about like the latest and greatest wave of technology, in this case with AI, right? I know like throughout my career, there were so many times where I only wanted to start working on something, until I had all the details, like everything was agreed upon, like there needs to be a checkbox here, there needs to be a text box here, and all those things. And the reality is, that takes a long time to do, and that slows down innovation. What we have found, especially even with AI, is like put something together and try it. Give it to your customers that you're hoping are going to be excited about it and want to use it, and start to get that feedback really, really early on. But in order to give them something, you just have to start. You have to, like what you said, Rishabh, you have to take that problem, you have to start to break it down. And sometimes you do have to break it down. Like if there's a really large problem, try to filter it down into something that is tangible, something that is small, focus on that, and then just try to build. And then, start like take on very quick feedback, give it to the people that are going to be using it at the end of the day. And really start to like generate feedback on that. Again, I know that was kind of cliche in in the tech space, that like give it to the end user, start start getting feedback. But I think the biggest one of it though is that you have to start, and also just remember, when you push that first version, that's not the final version. That's never going to be the final version. But once you get that first version, then you start to learn, and knowledge is power, right? And once you really start to learn, then that's when that product can really grow and explode and boom, because you were able to create it quickly and you were able to get that feedback. So start quickly and don't be afraid to fail.
And as probably the saying goes, right? There's no perfect product that exists in this world, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and just building on top of that, by the way, Bob, I know it's very cliched, but probably it's very, very true, right? And people still don't realize it, right? We work with founders who want to just probably build something which is very perfect, even if it probably takes 10x the time that probably
Yeah.
is required before they probably launch it, right? But see, one thing that at least we've observed is that technology has moved on. Technology has, even like in the last 3 years specifically, right? It has a J curve, right? It just probably boomed, right? But the process that we still follow to build some of these softwares is something as equivalent to a software life cycle, waterfall life cycle, right? So that process has not evolved much. What we need to understand is, again, building on top of what you said, is that this technology wave that we are going through allows us to probably build along with the customer to react to this feedback in almost real time. And one thing that we track as an organization through our boilerplates and the AImatic platform that we built, Bob, is FTV, which is first time to value. How fast was I able to probably get the first demo to the customer? And that cannot be in the 7th week of an 8-week project. It has to be in the first week of the 8-week project. So that now the next remaining 7 weeks are built jointly with the customer, because we have that capability now with this technology, right? So Bob, again, I agree, very cliched, but very true. But that was really insightful, Bob. I really enjoyed this conversation. I hope our listeners do too as well. And I really appreciate the partnership, first of all, and thanks for doing the session today.
I'm more than happy to do this, Rishabh. Again, I mean, I speak for the entire company at ConnectCareHero. I can't thank GoML enough for this partnership. And I mean, what we were able to build is truly incredible. And again, and now that we have, that first version, as I had said, now the ideas are starting to go where we're like, oh, well, now we can do this, this, and this. And like things are just exploding, and we're so excited about it. So again, I can't, from ConnectCareHero to GoML, I can't thank you all enough for everything. And I truly mean it when I say I hope that we can work together again, because we were able to really build some magical stuff, and I'm just super excited for it. And also, thanks for having me today. Thank you for listening. So
Absolutely.
wonderful.
Thanks again, Bob. And I'm pretty sure we'll continue this partnership along.
That sounds wonderful.
Brilliant. All right.